Okay, we have an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, full size. Let's see how fast we can do it, although I'm not going for speed, but I want to get everything I want to get done in this piece, but let's see if we can kind of expedite this from the usual time frame that it would take to do a full-size scene. I think I have a good technique on the composition I'm going to be doing right now. I've been practicing with it, for the last few lessons. I just got some ink on my hand. Easy to do with this gigantic piece right here. But a lot of people have been buying this Seaside Cove, which I'm happy to see. It's been kind of it's one of the most, I don't know, formidable stamps. I usually don't do full-page scenes, though. I mean, it's kind of rare. It's getting a little bit more common, I guess. Not common, but frequent, I guess. Relatively speaking, because I didn't used to do scenes this big. I might have gone 10 years without doing one at some points in time. But a lot of times I just use this stamp for, left, right, center, or sometimes there's this little top right here. This little top right here is almost the equivalent of the Seaside Cove. Small, but you can just use this smaller portion of it without those foreground types of imagery. But should you want to use it in a large format, you certainly could without having to compose a lot of separate elements together. And that's the concept of this design. It's to be used for various portions for whatever you need. Okay, so big stamp, okay? I should have re-inked my stamp. It's a little bit light in there, but that's fine. Like right in here. Yeah, I didn't have enough paper underneath there either. But, as I always say, these scenes, now if a big portion didn't stamp out, if it just stamped out a little bit lighter, that's fine. If a big portion didn't stamp out, yeah, I'd want to go for another impression, but as long as it's showing there, that's fine. Okay, now I'm going to do this thing with this corona up in the sky, okay? So I'm going to do this a little bit off center. I always do center, kind of a formatting in terms of my composition whenever I'm doing large scenes, but I want to do something a little bit off center. I want to create kind of a diagonal visual dynamic on this one. Alright, so full moon, wipe off the edges. Really good, okay, because I'm going to be stamping it out in a dark blue. And this is going to be my corona mask. Okay, so I need a little bit of space around it, so I'm just positioning this like so. So I have room for that corona without going off the page. I guess you could have it going off the page, but generally if there's something that kind of visually striking in a scene, you don't want to have it going off the page, okay? So the corona will be like that, okay? So you can see where I've wiped off the edges like that, and the reason why there is tone around this is so I don't have to go all the way up to the moon. I can just go right into that tone when I do my toning process. Okay, this is the Cloud Altocumulus Lg, and let's get some different types of kind of cloudy sky textures around this piece. I'll tell you what, I'll do it this way. I'll do full impressions, like so. Full inked impressions, and then let's go for some variation here. What you do is you ink it up, you put a few streaks in it like this, maybe a little bit more down below, like that, okay? Then when you stamp it out, let's take off a little bit here where it's going to encounter the moon right here, okay? And then you have that kind of fading off down there, see that? And you'll see where that comes into play. Comes into play when we add the tone to our scene. Okay, this is where it's going to overlap the moon or get close to the moon, so I'll just wipe a lot of that off. You could mask off that moon, you know, and just stamp right over the top of it. I'm not going to bother doing that, though, because I don't want to, for expediency's sake. Okay, so we have that. All right, now that's our foundation. It's very quick and easy. We're going to use some more imagery, but that's all it takes right there. And this is a big scene, too, so big scenes don't have to take a lot of time. I mean, they certainly can, as witnessed by several of my own pieces. I tend to spend a lot of time with the details, but you can get a really good foundation going. Okay, okay, for the sake of using various things to show that you can, I would just go straight on with my Marvy, but let's use some distressed tumbled glass. Okay, now you can go straight from your pad if you don't have a re-inker, but if you have a re-inker, we're going to be using a lot of ink on this scene. It's just easier to do it with re-inker fluid. I'm going to use a paper towel here. You can use a kitchen sponge if you want to. You can use your stylus tools if you have them. I'm going to use what everyone has. If you don't have paper towels, maybe you have some napkins or something like that. Everyone hoarding paper goods, you know, over the last few months. Maybe, you know, some of you are low on it, and I don't know, something like this is like gold, you know. But just applying it down like so. Okay, now this paper towel is very absorbent, of course, like a paper towel is supposed to be, so I might need to re-ink it. But check this out. Our moon is going to be the lightest thing in the scene, so around that moon, I'll just be careful not to tone it all out. If I get a little color in there, then so be it, you know, so it's not so stark white. But I do want to get a pretty decent amount of this down. Now, the fact that this is going to be monochromatic, you know, it's going to be all blue tones. It's not going to be mono value, but it's going to be monochromatic. That'll really expedite this process of coloring. Okay, let's go for a little bit more. Okay. Have a little soundtrack in the background. Son's practicing piano. And like I've said in previous videos, I'm not going to tell him to stop playing. Or don't practice, you know. Hard enough time getting them to practice at times. Okay, so what we're doing right here, which I haven't mentioned, you'll know if you've watched previous videos, but what I'm doing here is I am retaining some areas of light in each zone. So we have this kind of foreground area right here, right? Sand, water, area of light, and sky. Smaller area of light, okay? But what you do is in each area, you just retain some lightness, which simply means you don't color it out. That's the big question when everyone sees a finished piece, if they haven't seen this done before. They always say, how did you get that light there? You know, there's always a light area. Well, your paper starts off light, right? It's a weird concept, though, because what they do, most people are used to coloring in entire areas. Most types of stamping, you're starting with outline designs, so if you have an area of water, they're just fill it all in. Or an area of, it's not water, you know, they're not doing landscape stamping, but there's usually outline designs. If some figure is wearing certain types of clothes, then you color those clothes different tones, okay, in each area. And they're all fully colored in. They usually don't leave some areas. In landscape stamping, if you have lighting in a piece, doesn't even have to be landscape stamping, but in this type of lighting, coloring for lighting, what you're doing is you're just retaining some light in each area so that it looks like light within that space. Now I switched over to the salvia blue right here. Let's do something right here. Let's go to, I haven't used, let's use broken china, okay? And a few drops like that. Let's use a little bit more. We have a big scene. I'm used to working on quarter-page scenes, of course. Okay. Working my way in. You can kind of keep it kind of streaky, too, if you want to. Little striations in the sky. See, when you do that, like, streaky like that, it looks fine when it comes to scenes. You know, a lot of times people, you know, in different types of coloring, they tend to associate kind of texture. No texture, you know, you want everything absolutely smooth without any kind of streaks. I don't, you know, if you leave out texture, you know, you're missing something. You can go, certainly, for zero streaks and things like that. But I would have another area where it contrasts against that, where you do have some streaks of texture, because what that does by contrast is it makes those smoother areas seem much smoother, again, by visual contrast. So, you know, and the more contrast you have in range within a piece, be it color, value, texture, temperature, everything like that, it all adds up to a potentially richer surface. Okay, now I'm doing a quick mask here of my ocean surface. Okay, can you see where that's, you know, we have our lighting starting to take place. Look at that little subtle lighting on the water down here. I'm going to have some wolves running along the coast here, or the shoreline. Could be a Great Lake or something like that. Okay, that was the Broken China. Let's go with Mermaid Lagoon, okay? Now, I'm just guessing. I'm not real familiar with all these inks here, but I believe what I'm doing is I'm working from light to dark just based on the indexing of these bottles right here, okay? I wouldn't say dark. I have a feeling this Mermaid Lagoon isn't going to be very dark at all in comparison to some of the other colors that I'll be using. This one is real similar to the Marvy number 10, at least on first glance. First glance today. I haven't used it for a while. Okay. Alright, now, what I'm noticing here is I need to get quite a bit darker around my moon. If I don't go, you know, a little bit darker, we won't be able to see that corona added in with the white pigmenting, so take it in a little bit dark. This is what I'm kind of training myself to do in this last few videos. I'm not used to going quite so dark. Oftentimes the surrounding areas are a little bit dark in a scene, you know, the perimeter, the vignette, but I usually don't go quite so dark like on the water and just overall surface landscape. And, I don't know, I've been kind of surprised at how effective it is in terms of a different look. I mean, I won't make everything always so dark, but in dark scenes, you know, it just, it came to show me just how, you know, potentially dark an area could be, while retaining really effective lighting. I mean, I should have known, but I don't know, I just haven't really tried it. Kind of mutes things. It makes things a little bit quieter, but you know, I still do have some variation in there, albeit a very small area. let's see. All right, now with the Marvy inks, I really don't need to utilize the colors that I've already used the equivalent of in the Distress inks. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll move along here. If you can get darker using an existing color, then do that. You know, before you move on to your next color. That way you're not kind of underrepresenting a certain color, and you'll get the full kind of effect and vibrancy from that color. You know, so it won't look, the end results don't look kind of anemic. You know, you get a full kind of glowing surface. All right, this is Caribbean blue, really fantastic. Kind of warm green. I'm just using it on the same paper towel here, so you know, I'm never really using just a pure version of any color. It's always some combination of a mixture of my previous related hue and the next one, okay? This little bit of green in it, this warmth in this blue, gives the these blues a little bit of an analogous color glow, okay? Anytime a color is mixed with another color, or placed next to a color on the color wheel, it creates a color glow. And in this case, I just happen to be layering it right over the top of another color. So you're getting the glow kind of that way. It's actually layered right on top, okay? Now I'm using the pads here for the Marvies. I mean, you can certainly use re-inkers for them too. Okay, moving along. I have a lot of coverage right here, but it's really going to be those darker blues and black that are really going to make this scene kind of pop and kind of come together really nicely in terms of kind of the drama of the piece. You have to work through these base layer coats to get into those darker ones, but these base layer coats do pay off significantly. It's going to give you your end result a much stronger depth and saturation. People try to rush through the lighter tones quite often. If they're just kind of learning this process, they don't really see the value in that. They just want to get to kind of their notion of the end result, which is kind of an overall darker result. But if they do that, and it's kind of lacking something, it's lacking that deep saturation, it's because of these lighter tones that are underneath that I've used more than them. But the beauty of this type of technique right here is you just go right back in with your lighter tones and put them right over your darker ones, and it'll saturate it more. You know, you just kind of restart the process right over the top, because these are all transparent colors, so in theory it doesn't matter if it's underneath or right on top of those darker tones. You know, it doesn't matter where it is, they're all kind of sandwiched together. Okay, now on this piece right here, I can feel this paper starting to dry, so I'm getting a little bit more of a, you can tell when kind of the ink is kind of grabbing the paper, or the paper's grabbing. So what you do is you just kind of, you know, use a little bit of a lighter touch like this. See how I'm all kind of staying in that same area. So I'm not going like this, okay? you just stay in one area, like this. So you're doing this type of thing. Okay? That's all I'm doing here. And then, what I do is I move on to the next area. I'm just kind of working it kind of incrementally. No, this is not what you do on every scene. It's just that this scene right here is this kind of monochromatic one. You know, so, you know, I'm working with the same colors, but it's the same basic principle, though. Even if you're changing colors, you would do this in different hues, different color schemes. If there was a change in hue, blue skies, green grass, you know, brown, tan sand, or something, you know, daytime, whatever. It would just, you would do the same process, but you just want to kind of mix those areas quite so much, or at all. Okay, this is like a navy blue. It's the number 3 blue from Marvy. Memento would be like a Danube blue. This is a little bit darker than Danube blue Memento. Blueprint sketch. Blueprint sketch is its own color. That's what I really like about some of those distress inks. They're kind of unlike, you know, colors, other colors of other brands. It's not quite so kind of generic. Okay, so that kind of harder horizon line, that's what I've been doing lately. Lately meaning the last couple weeks. Okay, that is that. Let's take a look here. Let's go, shall we go into Prussian blue? Let's do it. Okay, so is this the color that I stamped my sky out in? I think it was. My Altocumulus and full moon. I think it might have been. It was either that or it was the blue that I just used. Yeah, this is getting really dry. It's a kind of a dry, arid day for me. Things are going to be different depending on where you live in terms of the how fast your inks are setting up and drying. Okay, let's go with this. I'm going to mask this way, then I'll mask the other way too. I just want to create, you know, a certain degree of separation between land and sky. I want them to unify in terms of visually and harmony, continuity, but I'd also want some, you know, a hard line of separation. And we don't always have to do that. I'm just doing it for this scene. Okay. What I'll do is I'll kind of do things, and I'll learn a new way to do something, or I'll get an idea. I get ideas off of other people all the time, you know, like on a Facebook group. It just happens to be an active posting group, so, you know, I think all of us just see it. Anyone can join, too, by the way. But I don't know. I think everyone kind of gets a really good collective type of knowledge bank from you know, checking that board out. I know I certainly do. I'll see something, I'll go, oh, I need to, you know, pull out that stamp again, or someone will use something in a different way than I've done, you know, over time, and you know, really gets the kind of breaks things open, you know, wide open on how to see and utilize different images or media. Or people will use new media all the time. Or some people do things in a completely unique way, and we have no idea how they do them, you know. Too. Okay, So it's kind of getting there. The thing that I'm kind of surprised at is just how dry this paper feels. Like it's really setting up fast. I can feel kind of a grab as I do this right here. How did I get all that on my fingernails? I'll never know. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? This is feeling kind of dry to me, and I'm going to go find my Caribbean Blue re-inker and just go right over the top of this. Not everywhere. I want to retain those light areas, remember. But it'll give me a kind of a good slathering of that color, and then I can build my other black on top of this. Okay. Alright. So glad it was like the first re-inker I came across in my Marvy re-inkers. Alright. Okay, let's just use the same one here. This paper towel is starting to get kind of shredded here, but that's alright. Let's use that. I kind of benefit from using this one as opposed to using a new one because it's kind of achieving a full saturation of that ink. Yeah, see that? I don't know if you can tell. I can tell that there's kind of a stronger glow there, isn't there? From using the re-inker. It's just because I'm getting a really deep slathering. There's a lot of ink on here, when you use that re-inker fluid rather than just kind of dipping into the pad, a little at a time. The pads kind of distribute the perfect amount of ink if you're going to be stamping an image with those inks. But when you're doing kind of this ink style of, I don't know, it's almost like painting, we can get a lot more ink with just the ink itself, rather than kind of absorbing it off that, material or sponge, whatever type of material your re-inkers use. Okay. Alright, so a little bit of a stronger saturation. Look at this, you can even go like this if you want to. Alright. Let's go with black. I don't know if I want to go with re-inker black, because I don't know if I want that much application at any given time. That's perfect right there. It's not, so dark and, wet. With black, you want to have a pretty good deal of control over your applications. Okay, you don't want a big slathering, like a Chinese calligraphy or something like that. See, when I apply it, I'm applying. It's like a gray. It's not like straight black. Okay, so that way you have a lot of control over it. And boy, this paper towel is really shredding. It's kind of shredding where I'm kind of going over the edge of the paper and pulling it up like that because it's catching the edge of the paper all the time. But that's fine. It's going to happen, especially if you go with, so many layers of ink, and this paper towel is very, very wet. But you can get a lot of mileage out of it, that's for sure. This is a full scene, and I've just used, I think was this a full sheet? This is a full sheet right there. You can almost use a half sheet, though. Or if I need to use another part of this, I'll just, get to a fresh area of it. That's not too bad, though. Like a half piece of paper towel, for one full-size scene, right? And I'm still using it. There are certain things that, though, like the stylus tool, is much better for. I can't get in some of the details in that wave, for example, with a big, wide, wadded up piece of paper towel as I can with a smaller sponge, you know, that I can manipulate different parts of. Okay, let's see. Alright, now this, I don't know, I might use a sponge right for here because I want to go with a really deep, dark application of this. Or let's see how dark I can get it here. My Marvy pad isn't super wet either. See kind of that strong horizon line right there. Okay. A lot of paper towel crumbs. Let's go for a reinker on my black ink here. Oh. My bottle is empty. I have several bottles of black, though. Okay, now, because I've built this up now, I feel much more confident adding black on here because it's much darker, so I can go with this darker application of it, wetter application of it, I should say, which, you know, of course, will lead to a darker application. There's just more ink on it. Okay, boy, that is really dark. This is where this line, this horizon line on the water really looks pretty cool. Be sure and kind of taper your applications like this. You don't want it to just go like this and then up right there. Okay, you want it, you know, like this, like you're sweeping stuff out the door. You're always starting from here, kind of working in. That we get it strong to soft. Okay. Stronger, softer, like that. Okay. gotta try to go left-handed here. I'm not used to this. The other day when I was doing this, I couldn't keep it straight. You know. I figured I can live with it, but, you know, it was kind of awkward. Yeah, a little bit better the more we practice at something, though. It's a little bit easier doing it this, you know, this time. It's kind of interesting. In some ways, I'm kind of removing ink, so it kind of created this little thing like that. But, you know, as far as like texture goes, we're into texture, right? All right. Okay, I got to get rid of this. There's this little piece of paper, or this big piece of paper is absolutely full. My desk is full of these paper towel crumbs here. Let's save that anyway. I might use a different portion of it. Okay, let's do some paper towel, torn paper towel masking on here. Okay, this is a lot of fun. All right, now I am going to use my sponge for that. You can use a paper towel. Well, here, I'll use a paper towel. I definitely want all. I've always wanted all techniques to be accessible to everyone. Well, it's provided. I mean, you know, if you have some of the kind of basic things, you know, diaper sinks and things like that, to utilize. Okay, so you're just here grabbing your paper towel like this, and I'm going. A lot of times you can go this way, and you can tone up like this. Okay, like this way. But I'm doing kind of this bottom-lit, or this will be top-lit cloud, so you go kind of the opposite way like this, okay? Or you can try it both ways, too. Okay, now, you got to do it in a color that will show up in here. All right, so it can't be too light. Now, you can do it in black, or you can do it in multi-tone as well, okay? But okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to try to taper this too, okay, like down like this, like tapping, 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 and we're going to try to blend it, and we don't want to just big solid shape right here, like that, and then we remove it, and it has this, you know, kind of texture right here. You want to kind of taper it down, so what I'm doing is the same type of thing. It's like this, and then, you know, you kind of blend it in like so, okay, like that, all right? So this is where I'm. Imagine the paper towel is here, it's darker, and then lighter, okay? This is not a hard process, but the thing is, you just want to avoid going like this, and then it's just this hard shape right here, okay? I mean, this was hard for me to do. This was easy, because, you know, it's just lighter, and you just kind of move it along like this. It's like a little powdery type of touch. See that, as it tapers off like that? This is, you know, this hurts my hand doing that, you know, so... You know, I don't think that's going to be a problem as far as effort goes. Is, you know, one way is much easier. Okay, let's see. Here we go, like this. And we have it's down here. Don't, you know, tone out all of your moon. It's darker over here and lighter over here. So I'm putting more ink in the darker area. Okay. I mean, you can even use one color like this and kind of taper it, and then use the darker color down here, so it goes from dark to light up here, you know, from the actual color that you're using, not just the amount of ink that you're using on there. That being said, I mean, I can go for a little bit of black right there, which maybe I need to do. Here. Let's grab this. Let's use the same one here, okay? I'll use a little bit of black. Oops! Oh, I forgot I just re-inked that black. I'll have to really kind of blend that in. Okay, suddenly things just got a lot darker out here, okay? Alright, so let's use that black out here, and let's use the same black. Okay, it's much lighter all of a sudden, but I'll have to blend that in. Okay, let's go here. Let's kind of blend that in a little bit. Let's go back to the dark blue, kind of navy blue. All right, there we go. A little bit darker than, you know, what I was planning for, but, you know, we'll just go with it. There's so much texture up here, it doesn't matter, though. It would really stand out there if it wasn't so dark in the background to begin with, right? So it's not really too big of a deal. It's just that you kind of have to blend it in a little bit more. Okay, so anyways, that's just a couple areas right here. We're going to do that whole type of thing all the way down here into the horizon. Okay. Let's go with the dark blue. There's a little bit of black on this too, of course. Okay, going with black. Ink up, blot off, for me, because you know, it's so heavy. Ooh, that is still a lot in there. Let's blot it off even more. Add more blue, and blend. Okay, right. Now let's use a different part of this for a little bit more variation. So it's looking like a little bit of a deeper area up there in the sky, isn't it? It almost looks like a landscape in itself. I'm picking up a little bit of texture from the paper towel, but we'll live with that. I can see those little textures, you know, those little fabric kind of patterns on there. Okay, so after you get some of these textures laid down, what you do is you go back in, you blend them out more. Okay, now in this darker area, I'll have to go for a much darker mask, or application of color around the mask. Okay, let's see. There, how's that look? See how I have all these different types of textures. You have color changes, you have the Altocumulus in there. Yeah, not too much texture from the actual ink application, but a touch. Okay. But pretty fun, though. Fun looking. It's really fun to watch that come together. It kind of looks weird, you know, if you just lay one down, one of those masks, and you tone it in. You kind of have to keep it consistent throughout, you know, that given space right in there. Okay, let's go for this hard edge mask, straight mask. I might use some of the island images in here. I think it might look pretty good. Because it kind of reiterate what's going on in the sky. The sky almost looks like there's islands up there with this ripped paper towel mask shape. Alright, so no stylus tools, sponging tools of any sort. And then we have this, you know, somewhat, well, I don't know. I think it looks fairly dramatic. You know, something's bothering me, though. I want to go with a little bit more of that Caribbean blue. The distress inks, I really like the distress ink colors. They make the perfect kind of collaboration with Marvy's, in that the Marvy's colors are, you know, really bright tones, you know, in the stamping world. But the distress inks are a little bit softer. You know, they're supposed to be earthy, you know, and kind of aged looking. And when you have something real aged, it's not real super vibrant, you know, because that's not what you want. They're supposed to look antiqued, right? They're distressed. So they're kind of dulling out, you know, some of my Marvy tones here. So see this right here, how I'm adding that in there, that's glowing a little bit more? That's the Marvy ones. So you kind of have to add in some brighter tones if you want some brighter kind of end results. All right, let's go for the re-inker fluid again. Okay, I switched to a clean area of my paper towel here. It's kind of funny, this isn't, you know, this is a glossy cardstock here, but as I go across this, it almost feels slightly textured. I don't know what from. All the different inks, maybe, I don't know. Okay, but this paper is really absorbing that. Let's go back to that other area. Oh, okay, forget it. I think this is the same paper towel that I've been using the whole time. Okay. Alright. See, the darker I go up there, it's kind of cool with that slathering. Okay. See, this is what I'm not so used to doing. I'm not used to kind of encroaching with my darker tones so far into the image, but it looks kind of cool in a setting like this. Let me think this over in terms of maybe putting out some islands out there. It might be kind of interesting. I don't know. Those look like islands in the sky to me. Like right up here. It might be interesting to put some in here. Or I might just leave it as it. I don't know. I keep going into these pieces with the notion of just leaving them ocean sky like that. But then I don't know, I'll put something in there just to create kind of a extra context or a kind of focal point, just because I can't resist. But I don't know, maybe I'll leave it as is. Okay, so tiny rocks image. And this is going on down here. Let's add in some extra texturing with this, okay? Just to create a little bit of a separation between that water right there and this shoreline, okay? So I'm doing this in that dark blue. Let's go for some second impressions where it gets into the lighter area, okay? Like right in here. This will blend in with that area in there a little bit more too. The drier it gets. Okay. Okay, this is the third impression right here. So you do the darker impressions in the darker areas, and the lighter impressions. That's like the third impression right there. 1, 2, 3. So see, it gets dark, medium, light. And the area down here is dark, medium, light. Okay? So you stamp your impressions light in the light areas. You stamp them darker in the dark areas. Just so it stands out. It stands out and it kind of blends in together. Alright, let's go for some black as well. Maybe not so black, because that isn't so black. It's more like a 90% black, so I'll kind of blot that off a little bit. And we'll go for some darker impressions in those real dark areas, okay? And that wasn't too dark there. Let me go for a just straight black in there. Okay. Alright, so there you have it. So that texturing in there, and that'll blend in more when it dries too. It's already kind of drying, so you see this kind of, is that kind of deeper space in there? Another one right in here. Alright, I'm going to have these wolves running along the shoreline. And I'm deciding if I want to do that now or if I should do that towards the end. Let's do that now. Okay, I'm thinking if I stamp it in there right now, and if I want to add anything over them, I could still. And it also depends, too. If I want to stamp these in like a VersaFine black, it's going to take a long time for it to dry, but it'll be really dark. So it's like, how dark do I want these to be? You know, I mean, it could, you know, there's not one answer that's right or wrong, you know, and the two answers are right and wrong. It's just, you know, what process do you want to employ in here? And, you know, chances are both of them look just fine. Just kind of I'm thinking about what my preference would be, okay? All right, now these ones, I'm going to stamp two different images of this. One's smaller than the other, so the smaller one's going to be a little bit higher up on the composition, because higher up generally means more distant. Okay, now this piece of paper is really quite moist, so I'm going to hold this down a little bit for the ink to transfer onto my surface. Otherwise, if you pull it off too soon in the wetter areas, it might kind of form like a vacuum, and you know, it's not going to give you a good impression. Okay, so look at that. Okay, and we have our smaller one right here. By the way, this is using Tack and Peel. And these guys will be running a little bit farther off in the distance. You know, a few feet I'm talking about, not miles or something like that. Okay. Look at those guys. They look like they're having some fun. Alright, let's start adding in some of those special, not really special effects, they're embellishments. Alright. White black pigment ink and some paint pen touches. Okay, so let's start off with the fun stuff, okay? The really fun stuff. Everything else is fun. This one's really fun. Okay, so I'm going to look for the center of this right here. I put a little dot right there for myself. There it is right there. And I'll just aim for the center of that moon. I'm going to hold this up to the light so I can see. If I'm off a little bit, it's not going to matter, but that's generally lined up. And I'm going to put this little corona on here with some pigment ink, and I'm trying to decide, should I use a cotton ball or should I use a Q-tip? Let's try to expedite things. Let's go with the cotton ball. You know, it's just going to apply a little bit of a wider application of ink. And I don't want, you know, a ton of ink coming off of this. I don't want a big blob around it. I want this kind of this glow around it. Okay. Kind of work in a little area. Don't try to do the whole ring all at once. Kind of blend this out. And you can make the corona a little bit lighter in some areas, and you know, a little more pronounced and a little bit more obscure in other areas. Okay. I'll blend that out a little bit more. You can use your finger to, you know, to kind of get things. I'm getting a little bit of texturing from this, you know, cotton ball, so you can always kind of manipulate it a little bit. You know, there's plenty of time to, you know, with regular pigment ink to kind of, you know, mix it around. See, it kind of looks like that. See, I've kind of broken it up a little bit. I think that looks a little bit more natural. In fact, some of these areas might have a little bit too much, so let's just try to break that up a touch. just kind of dab some of it off, so you can dab it on, and you can kind of dab it off too. Okay, something like that. It's kind of a dark night, so I don't want this to be too pronounced. Okay, now pigmenting is also going to dry darker than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied. Dye inks look like they're lighter than when they're freshly applied. When they're wet, they look real deep and saturated, and sometimes they can dry kind of dull and light. Okay, you spray it and it kind of brings it back. Pigment ink's the opposite. You put it on there and it becomes a little bit more translucent and see-through, so the colors underneath show through, so it gets darker, you know. The pigment ink application areas look darker. Okay, so that is that. Okay, now I'm going to use the same pigment ink to make that moon glow a little bit more, okay? So I stamped it out in a fairly dark blue, but I had planned on doing this now. You can kind of make it more about light now, because the moon is going to be your lightest thing in the sky, especially a full moon, barring, you know, kind of artificial light somewhere. So we want this to be fairly light and glowing. Okay, so taper the ink out as well. You don't want to just have a big blob there. Can you see what's kind of happening there? Kind of moving this out like this. Okay. Let's put a little bit of this kind of mist down on the shoreline, right around these wolves. It'll put them in a little bit of a atmospheric mist or fog. It could just be the you know, the ocean mist, you know, from the crashing waves. It's creating a little bit of a illuminated moisture in the air. I don't know if you can see it around that wolf down here. I put a little bit of pigment ink around his back and kind of at the legs of this one. Here, let me go for a little bit more control. This is a Q-tip right here. I'm going to kind of fray the end and, you know, kind of create a little bit of a softer applicator for it. I can get in kind of more specific areas with this one. Oops, no, that's way too much ink. I don't want big blobs of ink, okay? I want it to where you kind of add it down and it, you know, just adds a little bit of a very subtle touch. Okay. And I'm adding it right around this lighter area. I can put some of these on these rocks here. Okay. I think I want those islands out there. I want to create kind of this transitioning field back here, kind of open to that area up there. I'm trying to decide if I want a little bit of a celestial type of thing with some splatter painting effects up there. It might be kind of cool. Okay, we have some island designs here. Put one of them right there up there on the horizon. Okay. We can use the same one. I'll use a smaller one. Different shape. If you kind of stamp it in different locations, a little bit higher, a little bit lower, more that side, you know, coming in from there, it won't read as the same one, but I want to go for a little bit of scale here as well, so let's go with this one kind of out there in the distance, a little bit higher up. Even like a 16th of an inch, an eighth of an inch, you know, it could look much more distant. Holding it down, you know, got to get that ink to transfer on this fairly wet surface. You see that? They kind of provide nice silhouette shapes, don't they? Okay, I didn't think I'd use all three of these, but I am. I think that'll look good. Or let's see. That goes in this way. So it'd be like this. I might change my mind here. I might go for this one again. Let's see. Each one of these little islands have a little bit of a different characteristic to them. That's how I drew them. And there's a couple other ones too, but I didn't want to go for the real big one. Okay, so now this one's going to be stamped out in this really dark edge, so I'm going to hold this one down for a little bit longer. Alright, so there you have it, kind of like dark silhouette shapes out there, right? It kind of creates a little bit of a passageway too, you know, going up there. A little bit of a stronger visual lead-in type of thing. It's not super strong, but I don't know. It's this intermediate types of elements in there, just to you know, take yourself from this up there into that moonlit area, or maybe you just travel down this way. I don't know, you know, but it provides a little bit of a visual path. Okay, now I think that this piece could benefit from a little bit of this texturing up here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. I think I need some water in it. You need to kind of reconstitute it. You know, if you don't use it for, you know, a little bit, mix it up. You don't have to mix it up totally, just kind of the top area of it where you're going to be dipping into it. And you want to get the consistency of like a syrup or something. Okay. Oops, why did I put the top back on? Okay, I have my old toothbrush here. And I'm not trying to sop it up completely. You know, I just want it on the bottom, I don't know, 1/8 inch or so of the bristles. Okay, and let's Now this is a lot of fun. This is the stuff that we do, you know, like when we're in kindergarten or something like that. And then you never do it again, you know, until you're, you know, I don't know, an adult doing scenic stamping or whatever. Okay, but here comes these little star types of textures. Can you see that? I hope that camera's picking that up. Here, a little closer. Let's do this too here. What I'll do is I'll go to my mask and I'll mask off the horizon. It's okay if a little bit gets down there, but I don't want to get too much down there. I mean, ideally, I'd probably be masking off those mountains too. Oh, let's just do that. That'll save me a little bit of time. Okay. I go like so. Not too hardcore of a mask, huh? Okay, there we go. I'm right here, by the way. Do some masking. It's hard to tell which way this is going to go sometime. You know, you're splattering. I'm not going like this. Zzz. I'm just kind of letting, you know, a couple bristles go at a time. Okay. I got a couple on my mountaintops, that's fine. You can always kind of wipe them off, but isn't that a fun texture up there, though? See that? See, I got some on my mountains. I don't know. I guess I didn't mask them off enough. I'll go in there and wipe them off, though. It'll come right off, or it should. Just go like this and just kind of buff them right off. Okay, fun stuff. For sure. I love doing that technique. I love the end result. I mean, it's fun to do it too, and we'll just kind of watch it happen. It's like embossing or something, watching, you know, that kind of transformation happening in there. All right. Isn't that kind of a nice texture? Okay, let's grab our Miaosun white paint pen. I've kind of migrated from my white gel pen a little bit. This, I find, it works, it's a little bit less temperamental, especially if I'm using it over something like that bleed-proof white, you know, that splatter paint, or if I'm going over pigment ink. It just, you know, it applies a little bit easier, this one does, because it's not a roller ball, you know, kind of rolling that media up into the ball and clogging it, so a little bit, but this one you do have to kind of shake up to get it kind of mixed up, otherwise it's really translucent or almost see-through, so you kind of have to really mix up the paint well, you know, that is paint on the inside. I don't know, these, you know, this one gets a little temperamental too sometimes. I think it's when they get dried out or something. Alright, let me see, I need to do some mask here. I'm going to put some highlights down on my water surface. Yeah, you kind of get it flowing, you kind of trigger release this, and it get it flowing here. Okay. And I'm going putting in these little horizontal little touches in here. It's kind of it's going along with the design, so I can see those little horizontal, you know, textures on the water's surface. You know, going back into the horizon. So You don't have to do a lot of these. You can just kind of apply some of these little highlights here, which are called specular light in photography. It's light that's brighter than white. So it's like it's kind of just shimmering on the water surface like that. Okay. These also, let's say you want to go for a really specific star in here or something like that, you know, or you can go for a little bit of variation. You can put in something like this in a couple areas. Or you, I don't know, you can put as many as you want. You know, it's hard to control exactly where you know, those splatters, you know, painting textures are going when you're doing that type of process. But you can go in and do some fine tuning additions with a pen like this. And I'll put a little on the corona too, just to emphasize the corona. Okay. So I could kind of put some larger dots up there to complement the smaller ones. Okay, down here in the ground too, you can kind of put some highlights down here where the light is hitting. Kind of makes that area shimmer a little bit. Okay. A little shimmering little surface area around the walls. We're going for this kind of like little magical, you know, little moment in time, trying to capture it, whatnot. So that's what those little sparkles kind of bring some areas to life. Okay, let's go back to our white pigment ink again. Okay, I'll show you what you can do with this. That's really fun. On some of these stars, like that, we have variation in terms of the size of dot here and there, you know. So you can kind of, to bring extra variation to them, you just go over them with a little bit of pigment ink, like this. You want to do it with a dry brush, you don't want a big blob, okay? You want to do it where kind of it takes a few little taps for it to kind of show up. Kind of cluster some a little bit. Maybe I'll make one kind of really bright, a brighter glow like that. Kind of taper it off and make it wider, just for some variation amongst the glowing stars, you know. It doesn't have to be all glowing the same, so one's a little bit brighter. Maybe that's a planet, I don't know. Maybe one's really faint. It's a young star, maybe. The distant one. Okay, so you can see that there's some variation up here now. Oh, isn't that fun? A little area up here. Makes for kind of a nice night sky. All right, this is where, you know, these are the things that I really enjoy doing. it's not exactly a fast process when you employ all these little things like this on a full-size piece of paper, but they don't take a lot of time to do in the holistic, sense. It's just, another, I don't know, what is it, 3 minutes or something like that for these little glowing little pieces like this. That's not too long, but it can be a really effective thing, and in the end result, kind of the cumulative kind of result of doing something like this really pays dividends, with the piece in its entirety. So I even put these little glowing little shimmers in the water. I don't know if you can see those ones. Those little sparkles fun, and I did it down here on some of these as well. So all right, let's add some foreground to this. Let's keep it really simple. Go for some reeds here and some VersaFine black. VersaFine's one of the darkest blacks I've ever seen, or the darkest. That's in my collection of media. There might be darker ones out there. I'm not an authority on really any media. I've come to use certain things how I use them, and if I find something that really works well, I tend to stick with it. But if I do find something that works better, I'll move over to it if it works, enough better than something that I already have. I wouldn't say that I've moved on completely from white gel pens, but I find myself kind of using it more and more. Okay, so reeds right here, not covering up the wolves, my subject matter. I stamped those wolves in black Marvy just so I can embellish them a little bit more, but I thought about doing them in the VersaFine, but if I did them in the VersaFine, you can't really touch them for a long time because they're going to be really wet. So I couldn't put on like a pigment ink over the top of VersaFine. See, this is like super juicy. See that? Those reeds right there. It's completely wet, but give it a few hours and it'll dry up okay. Okay, see that grass right there. See what we have. The Corona really is a quite large visual, isn't it, in there? As far as a commanding visual. I'd say that Corona, well, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think the Corona or the wolves are the strongest focal point? Maybe it's something different for you, I don't know, than those two. For me, it's probably one of those two, in terms of competing for the attention of the piece. But again, another pretty dark composition right here. Maybe a little bit darker than I usually go. So I couldn't really bring too much like white pigment ink into these areas or the white gel pen, because if you kind of darken in these areas in here and you take away most of like the white of the paper, you're saying that there's not a lot of light hitting those areas, and that's what kind of the white paint pen and white pigment ink are kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They're animating those places, those locations with additional light. Okay, so if I put white pigment ink down there, I'm saying that there's some mist in there with that light hitting off of it, but there's such a dim kind of area of lighting down there, so there wouldn't be so much of little white embellishments needed, or I don't know, warranted, or even might even not work in that area. So I don't know. It's fun stuff. I really like these kind of darker pieces here. Doesn't mean I'm going to stick with it. Like, okay, that's the way to do it. It's just a different type of look, you know, especially for a nighttime type of scene. The islands down here, and see this is what I was talking about. When I got those types of masked out areas in there, those kind of look like islands to me. So you get this little bit of continuity between surface, you know, down here, with these islands reiterating what you have going on up here. Look at that one, looks like that one in a way. And then this one over here, you know, could be that little piece down here. So all those little types of things create kind of this harmony and continuity between the different regions, which represent different distances in the piece. And then you have the same continuity from the repetition of form, okay? Like a interior designer will use certain colors throughout a house or something like that, or a room, and they'll often use the same types of shapes, you know, in different areas. So, you know, things like that and that. You know, you reiterate that throughout the piece, and it adds to that overall kind of collective harmony of the overall. Okay, so anyways, I hope you enjoyed this scene. I certainly enjoyed doing it. It probably took a little bit more time than I was thinking about. I was thinking about it like, I was kind of curious if we could do a 45-minute whole page scene, but I don't know. I love all these little types of touches in there, so I don't know. Just had to add them in, and however long this was going to take was however long I was going to work on it. So thanks again for tuning into the channel. If you like this video, please hit the like button. It helps, I don't know, probably exposure of, you know, maybe 2 more people watching the videos or something like that from all 5 of us that are watching. Not including me, because I don't even watch them again. So, yeah, if you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section.